Welcome to United Sessions on another wonderful Monday evening. It's March 29th. I'm hanging out with one of my favorite people on the face of the earth, Mr. David Carl. David, even seeing the title of our podcast tonight is ridiculous and over the top. United Sessions with Claudio Reyna. How about that?
It's a little bit ridiculous. I grew up kind of idolizing the guy. I mean, frankly, young U.S. soccer fan, and he was the captain of the team in 2002 at the World Cup, and we'll talk about that with him. And he was he was Captain America, back then. And so, yeah, the idea that I'm going to be co-hosting a podcast in which he is the interview subject is kind of mind-blowing for me. And I rarely get nervous before interviews. I've done a lot of interviews in my life. I'm a little bit nervous on this one.
Yeah, it's going to be good times for sure. Before we get into that, we actually had some news closer to home in terms of a league event, and that is what happened in Charlotte. This has been an event, an issue, something that's been brewing for a long time. I'm struggling with my words, and I'm going to hand it over to you because this is something that I don't think is resolved by any stretch of the imagination, but is at least moving in the right direction.
Yeah. I thought today was a good step in the right direction. And to provide a little bit of context, there's been a lot of calls for the majority owner of the Charlotte Independence, Mr. Dan D'Amico, to be removed, to find a way to get him out of the league due to some statements that he's made on social media promoting conspiracy theories about the origin of COVID-19. And frankly, some insensitive things that he said on social media in general, things that could be perceived and were perceived and frankly were racist. So these things have kind of led to a head, and the league came out and I think did the right thing today and said that essentially they are going to be looking for a replacement owner for Mr. D'Amico. And I think that's the right move from the league. I don't think that this is resolved by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's, again, a step in the right direction. It's important to remove an individual who says these kinds of things, because I don't think that kind of thing has a place in our league and in the game at all. It's also important that the league and that people within the league and fans and organizations come out and say the right thing, that this kind of thing is unacceptable in the game we play. So that's a step that I think still needs to be taken from a lot of perspectives. So that's, again, we had a good step in the right direction today, but certainly not done. It's a step, but it's not all of it.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it any better. We will be monitoring that progress. And we welcome anyone's thoughts on this, right? We think this is an important issue. I think a lot of what we saw in relation to this issue was social media volume. We saw some of our fans making sure that this was at the forefront. And I think it's really important. I think the conversation continuing is really important. This is not over by any stretch of the imagination. There's no way to make a transition here without it being a slightly awkward transition, Dave. So let's just lean right into that. You took a little trip this weekend. You forgot your sunscreen, yet you were burned 7 days prior. What's going on, man? How was Tucson?
Tucson was great. A lot of fun. Was on the bus 6.5 hours each way with the guys as we headed over to Arizona to play the Colorado Rapids, an MLS opponent. It kind of gives you a little bit of appreciation, if you didn't already have it, for how much time the guys spent on buses last season when we didn't have any home matches at all.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. But we got there and had a great time. Guys ended up falling 1-0 to Colorado Rapids in a good match. Obviously, in the preseason, you're less worried necessarily about the results. You're more worried about the play and things that you can take away from that. And I would imagine that Troy and Zach and the technical staff had plenty of positives to take away. It was just fun to see the guys play in person. We got to see them last week at home at the practice facility, and then to see them again. Also, that facility in Tucson is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous facility, beautiful grass, lots of fields. So it was nice to go.
I think there's a reason a lot of teams make the trip down there for the preseason, but regardless, glad that you got to make the trip. As a fan, you did a great job, man. You made me feel as close to the action as I could, given the circumstances and given no live stream. So hats off to you. hats off to the team again as this preparation continues to happen. All right, Dave, fun new segment time, right? We can hit the fanfare music or whatever.
Let's do it.
I talked to you a little bit off air, and I was like, I think this is an important question, and I think it can get the conversation going, and we 100% want the viewership to get involved with this. It's important. I think we're all building a new specialty playlist after this conversation. So, Dave, the question is simple. What is your hand-washing song?
That's such a specific question that I think maybe a year and a half ago, people have been like, what is a hand washing song? That's ridiculous. Right. But when we all found out we had to wash our hands for 20 seconds, in order to, combat the coronavirus, we found a song that worked for us. And I remember early on in the pandemic, I saw this on social media and it never got out of my head. It is the beginning of Smash Mouth's All Star. So you start with Somebody and you go all the way to the years start coming and they don't stop coming. That's 20 seconds if you time it right, and make sure you get your hands washed. It's a ridiculous thing, but there you go.
Yeah, share yours in the comment, folks. Mine is a vacillation. Mine is a vacillation between a song that one of our fans wrote, Javier Bondo. So I love that he did it the original start of the pandemic. Javi, if you're here, drop a link, Javi. Everyone needs that in their life. And then I don't know the name of the song, Dave, but maybe you can help me out with it without us getting a copyright infringement thing here. But it's that one that goes, shake that thing, this Annabella shake. I don't know what the actual name of the song is, but that's another thing I do in just randomness for hand washing.
Oh, it's oh man, I don't remember the name of the song. All right, I know what you're talking about.
Right. It's just ridiculous dance noises. So again, if you want to get involved with the conversation, just let us know what your hand washing song is. Maybe our amazing digital engagement specialist, Robert Salas, will put together a Spotify playlist for all of us. I think that's enough for the first segment, Dave. And I think we've done a good job getting in Lucas and David nonsense before the thing that really brought people here.
Yeah, which is Claudio Reyna. So excited to talk to him. Captain of the U.S. men's national team. Just one of the greatest players in U.S. men's national team history. Certainly the greatest midfielder in U.S. men's national team history. Sporting director over at Austin FC now. I mean, this is a big one, Lucas.
I think one of the biggest things we can say about him is that Troy Lesesne very much indicated that he considers him a mentor. And Troy's actually going to join us for the conversation. So it's going to be a couple of legends joining the fray on the other side of the break. Dave, do we have a little house cleaning we need to do?
Yeah, absolutely. We are proud members of the Brellis Podcasters Guild. And once we get past this pandemic, we'll be doing our show from the Brellis Podcasters Guild, which will be a lot of fun. They support local. We support local. They house many a wonderful podcast, including, was it 10 Drink Minimum? Is that what it's called?
That's right. Chris Burnett. Yep. Billy Belmont made a return. Epic podcast. Epic fellas.
Yeah, great folks over there. And again, just a wonderful representation of the local talent that we have here in New Mexico. So we're proud members of them. In addition to that, if you like the pod, go ahead and give us a rating, subscribe, download, all that kind of stuff. It helps us get seen by more eyeballs. And again, this podcast is always about community first. So we want to get that message out to as many people as possible.
Yeah, support has been amazing from the beginning, everybody. Thank you so much. Please continue it. Stay with us through the break. On the other side, U.S. men's national team legend, Claudio Reyna.
From day one, community has been at the heart of New Mexico United. This state, these people, this culture is in our DNA. United has always been more than a sports team, and victory has always been more than 3 points. With everything we do, we are dedicated to creating positive outcomes for every New Mexican. It's time for us to double down on that mission. Introducing the Somos Unidos Foundation, our commitment to the future in our state, to the future of our community, and to our belief that we are all united. Somos Unidos.
And welcome back to another edition of United Sessions. It's a wonderful Monday spent when we get to spend it with you. Tonight, Troy Lesesne has outdone himself once again. We have asked him to lend his services in two guests of booking. The first time we asked him to do this, it was Kyle Martino. And the second time, we have U.S. men's national team legend Claudio Reyna. Troy, talk a little bit about how you met Claudio and how you were able to make this happen for us.
Well, first, I hope Mr. Claudio Reyna doesn't take offense to the fact that he was the second name that came up, and we went with Kyle Martino first. So, Claudio, there's no offense there, my friend, I hope. But secondly, here's how I got to meet Claudio. I was doing my A license in 2009, and I was a college coach at the time. I was 25, 26 years old. And I was in a room with other A license candidates, and Claudio, Greg Vanny, Alexi Wallace, Kobe Jones, Ezra Hendrickson, the list goes on. I had no business being in that room. And so every day I felt like, look, I'm just going to keep to myself and try to soak up as much information as possible, which I did. But then there's this legend, in Claudio Reyna that made time for me. And I felt so comfortable asking him anything. He's so generous with his time. And now here we are, 10, 12 years later, and he's on United Sessions. And I think he's just continuing to amplify that idea. He's someone that wants to see the game grow and has been at the forefront of two organizations recently in Austin now, Austin FC and New York City, and making those organizations go and getting them off the ground and running. And, for him to join us is a complete privilege and an honor. And, man, what a guy. Claudio, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, I remember that like it was yesterday. I had a lot fewer gray hairs, but that was a fun week. And, we got to know each other really well. And a lot of those coaching courses, what everybody always says is not so much the content that you get, but the relationships you build and the conversations with the other coaches. And my path went in a different direction, but it's great to see, Troy, your career kind of continue to grow from then to now. And really everybody's in that course. So Troy, thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
So Claudio, you have had obviously an exceptional career as a player, and now kind of again with NYCFC, with Austin FC, moving into a tactical role. Obviously, we're going to get to the U.S. men's national team stuff that is near and dear to my heart, but obviously didn't start there. You played overseas. You made your way back to the States. What were those early days like for you? Getting your start off as a young player.
Yeah, so my early days back, I was born in the 70s, in 73. So there you go. I'm 47. And I grew up in New Jersey, in a town just outside of Newark, New Jersey. And my introduction to the sport was to my dad. He immigrated from Argentina. My mom is Portuguese, and that's all he could teach me. That was only rules of any sport he knew. But he also, like many immigrants, and they wanted to come here, and I think the ones who, for whatever reason, some don't do it, but my dad and mom were very open for my brother and I to jump into American sports. So I played basketball, I tried baseball for about half a minute, and then I didn't like that I couldn't run, and I played everything. I was very sort of American, but behind this, it was soccer that was my passion. I grew up in a town where I was the only kid who played it, and who played it seriously. Every other kid, my friend, was like their second or third sport. But it was really my dad who kind of, at the time, pretty much volunteered on the club team, and every kid on the team was either Greek background like me, Greek parents, Colombian parents, Ecuadorian parents, Uruguayan, you name it. Everybody was basically first generation. And we had a really good team. We played in New York City against teams from the Queensboro, from Brooklyn, Long Island, and that was our world growing up. And to me, it was incredible. It was very competitive, lots of good players, from all over the world. The ethnicity of the different teams we played, whether it was Armenians and Hungarians and Italian Americans. It was really tough. And we played every other year. We would play because at the time there wasn't in this pay-to-play model like a team every age group. So every other year we would play. We would be the younger team in the Cosmopolitan League, which still exists today, but it isn't competitive. And so every other year we were playing against really tough teams. And my dad just would come home from work, would take me out to play with my brother and older people all the time. And I think when people ask, like, how did I kind of grow up playing at a time where there wasn't the model we have today, for better or worse, I think it is better than I grew up in because there's more kids playing. There's more, training that's at a better level, better coaching. But my dad always had me play against older players, against men, against, he knew that if it was easy for me, it wasn't good. So where I think you get a lot of parents who are like, oh, my son scored 3 or 4 goals, is awesome. He dominates. Look how great he is. He always knew that growing up from Argentina, that there was a lot of good kids around the world, that if I was going to stay playing only my age, that wouldn't help. So, he knew that, if he was going to make me better, I had to be in tough situations, and I had to lose, and I had to understand how to, not just either run by people or dribble by people easily. And really that shaped me. Really, I grew up playing against, my brother was 4 years older, so all his friends and kids that were 2 or 3 years older. So I naturally had to kind of figure it out and get beat up. And so that was kind of my upbringing to the sport of soccer. And I played a lot of basketball as well until I was about 14. And like I said before, he allowed me to do that as much as I wanted to. And that also helped me as well because it allowed me to kind of take breaks from soccer and just have a change of scenery. And in the winter, to be honest, there was very little back then. There was no futsal. There was some indoor tournaments, but he knew that kept my fitness up and my agility and be able to play a sport that I also love playing. So that was kind of my background, and my dad certainly deserves, the majority of the credit of helping me in my pathway with soccer.
Well, and certainly his efforts paid off in the dividends of what we saw with your legendary, I guess it was high school or prep school career, where you see a familiar name cross across the board there in Greg Berhalter. And then that kind of translates into your time at UVA, and you met another familiar name in the U.S. men's national team scene, and that was Bruce Arena. And I thought that was just so amazing that you met that early on, and then it kind of continued throughout this decades-long career. Talk about that relationship with Bruce and sort of how that's evolved from your time at UVA to today.
Yeah, I mean, it was Bruce was also a regional coach back in or it still exists, the ODP system, and he saw me in those regional camps, and he was a coach, and a lot of the college coaches worked those camps, and that was the first time I met him on the sideline, and that was like amazing for any player back then to meet these college coaches. That was our next step, the next chapter in our careers back then. And we didn't dream of being professional soccer players. I'll be perfectly honest with you. It was go to college. That's why my dad moved here, was to have a better life and to get an education. And I went on to UVA, got a scholarship, and that was like, I would say up until I was 17, that was my priority, my focus. And then around that age, when I went to college, there was some interest, subtle interest. Bruce, I think more than anything, just developed a very competitive environment. He pushed me as well. He knew kind of what I touched on before with my dad. He knew how I was raised, and he just kind of picked up on that. He didn't give me a free pass at all. Played with a lot of good juniors and seniors when I was a freshman. And so that challenge of playing against older players and with older players is what really helped me. And still to this day we keep in touch. I see him, obviously it's a small soccer circle. As you said, I grew up playing with Greg Berhalter, coincidentally, obviously now the national team coach, but we went to high school together. My dad coached both of us in club soccer, and he was an American kid who only loved playing soccer. He didn't play any other sport, and he was a bigger junkie than me, to be honest, with soccer. Like I love other sports, and he was just soccer through and through. And, he went to North Carolina. We played against each other. And, it's just crazy to see how it's come full circle. And we obviously Bruce was a national team coach in World Cups. He was also the Olympic coach in '96 in Atlanta. And he's, I think, the amount of people, look at these guys at the coaching tree, or, the different people they've impacted, off the field really is where, you remember more than anything, all those memories. Of course, he was someone who supported me and guys he was able to coach, only think the world of him. And, he's been doing it forever. I respect coaches so much more now than I ever did as a player, to think how long they do it, the grind, that I'm sure Troy's going through all the time, and in my role now, being able to see it, being close to it. I certainly have a lot more respect for coaches, and in particular people like Bruce, who just keep going at it and love it and thrive on the competition. So, it's great to see that he's still, again, rebound after the disappointment of the World Cup. I got to see him down at UVA at a reunion after the, not qualifying for Russia. He was really down and disappointed, but you didn't see any sense of him stopping or quitting or retiring. He got back into it. You could see, as typical Bruce, last year they went to the Eastern Conference Finals in MLS, and they'll be competitive again. So he has his way. He's definitely old school. He will make fun of sort of the iPad coaches, as he calls them now, but that's Bruce. If you know him, he has a good laugh about it, but he's old school through and through, and he's not going to change.
Well, you mentioned Bruce there. What was it like, again, you meet him at UVA, you're with him there, and what is it like to go, I guess, from one place to another, a very different place from UVA, national team, with that same coach? How much did that help you, as you're playing for the national team with a coach
Yeah, it definitely helped, because I knew what the training sessions were like, how competitive he created the atmosphere. And, Bruce is a really proud American that wanted the national team and the Olympic team to do better and get respect around the world. And, he wanted to make sure that the guys that were with him. And so, you built up trust, but again, he's very tough, and he holds people accountable. He was much tougher. He's certainly softened up as a grandfather now that he is. His son has kids, and I remember Kenny when he was 4, 5, 6 years old around UVA. So he's certainly softened up a little bit, and he's become more, I would say, of a manager at this last sort of decade of his career, and delegating more of the coaching and the some of the decision making day to day. But back then, he was very hands on, and made sure every detail was right. And I think one of the aspects that he deserves a lot of credit for, especially with the national team, was just more than any other coach, he really improved the professional atmosphere and environment around how the team traveled, the support staff around, getting more people on, and really making it much more professional than it was. I mean, prior to that, it was completely different. He really pressured and pushed U.S. Soccer to invest more money in the senior national team, which also trickled down to the youth national teams, which then also and of course deservedly transfers over to the women's national team. So a lot of us previous players remember some dire days where we wouldn't stay at the nicest hotels, and we didn't travel charter planes. Now it's completely normal, and I think Bruce deserves a lot of credit for pushing the envelope with U.S. Soccer.
Troy, you grew up in this scene. You grew up amidst these changes, right? These are things that are not necessarily things that are in the abstract past, or things that you weren't experiencing. So what sort of impact, what sort of influence did those changes have on you as you were looking at your own career, as you were looking at your future in the sport, seeing it become a little bit more professional? What sort of impact does that have?
Yeah, I can recall, like the 96, 97, 98 team. I know the 98 team didn't do as well as we wanted for, that particular World Cup. But I remember, Claudio, you can probably speak to this, but there was a big fight too for the players to start to be treated more professionally. And I think that in the end, you guys were able to really leverage a good situation for each national team player, which also changed the face of how you were treated individually, how you were compensated. And I think that those changes, while they didn't directly impact maybe the 98 World Cup, but they definitely impacted going into the 2002 World Cup, a lot of the success that we were able to have. I think, Claudio, I mean, you can speak to that better, but that to me, that 2002 World Cup, you get to see Claudio and John O'Brien, Brad Friedel. There's another couple I'm missing, but they also had the experience of playing overseas, which I think you're seeing the quality start to improve, both on the field, off the field, how they're taken care of. And so it started to revolutionize that you can make this thing a career. And I was in college at the time. So that was my goal was, man, I want to be a pro player at the highest level possible. That didn't happen to Claudio's level by any means, but I think it changed our outlook that this can be something that's not, a 1 or 2 year stop. It can be a career now, and we can make what we want of it because we're American players that can go to the final 8 in the World Cup, which is what Claudio and them accomplished in the 2002 World Cup. So I think it changed the mindset completely for what soccer was in the mid to late 90s to now in the early 2000s. It really took off in a big way. And I'd love to hear Claudio speak to the international experience and some of the experience overseas that a lot of those players really injected into those teams, as well as just how the agenda changed towards making it more of a realistic career for a lot of guys.
Yeah, I mean, it was a sort of a watershed moment for sure. I mean, the league, we can be very open about it, was struggling at that time. And so we were, I moved over to Europe just before the league started, and there was a handful of guys who started their careers here and then moved over, and talking in particular around the 98 and 2002 team. And then there was guys that used MLS as this platform to get onto the national team. And I think Bruce really merged the two well, the MLS domestic players and the guys playing in Europe. He created a unit, and I feel recently, I think the media has unfortunately done this to try to create a sort of MLS versus guys in Europe, which I think is ridiculous. The guys are all one and they play for the same team. That didn't exist back then. We all wanted our teammates back here in MLS, whether it was here or to move abroad to make as much money as they can. That's the reality. Everyone's trying to get a contract, trying to make a living, trying to better themselves, and us playing in Europe certainly gave us a lot of confidence, a lot of preparation ahead of the 2002 World Cup. And it was a team that certainly had a chip on its shoulder after what happened in '98, and Bruce really fueled that fire. He understood that there was talent, there was a lot of potential as well, and he kind of really made sure that we understood that we had a lot of respect to win back after what happened in '98, and the responsibility that we felt. There was no doubt it wasn't just about U.S. soccer; it was about soccer in the United States, and that was our mindset as a group. And we knew, we didn't talk about it, but we knew it was important for us to do well, that it would help MLS. We knew that it would help careers. At the same time, which was really good, and I think the main difference of the '98 and 2002 group, there was a lot of different factors that went on in terms of, not to get into coaching and player selection and strategy and formations, but in '98, the biggest factor that undid the team was that it was extremely selfish. Oh, sorry. The biggest factor that impacted that team, I would say that it was very selfish, and there was players really trying to perform and play in that World Cup for personal contracts, where in 2002, while it's always part of it, everyone was focused on the team doing. The guys on the bench, as much as the guys playing, we were celebrating together. And again, a lot of that credit goes to Bruce creating that atmosphere and really demanding more and holding people accountable. But it was all about as they say, the badge on the front and not the name on the back.
You mentioned 2002. You mentioned Bruce Arena. I think I would be failing myself as a U.S. soccer fan if I did not bring up the match against Mexico to get into the quarterfinal. Coach plays you out of your normal position on the right side, and it pays off in the 8th, 9th minute, somewhere around there. And one of the best goals of my childhood watching that match. That must have been the most incredible feeling to beat a rival on that stage in Seoul for a shot at the quarterfinal. Can you take us through the emotion of what I imagine is probably one of the moments that you're most proud of in your career?
Yeah, definitely. When people ask, it's definitely number one. I think as well as your first cap, I think also that one for me. I think your first one's always special, and then that one was an amazing game to play our bitter rivals. They were flying. They won the group, and they were the favorites, and we had a quiet confidence around us being able to beat them. We knew them really well. And Bruce told me before the game, a few days before the game, that he was thinking of playing me or wanted me to play right midfield in a 3-5-2. And, I didn't think twice about it. I played right back at Glasgow Rangers. So I understood that area of the field and understood that I could impact the game in the middle. So kind of what I said before, it was about the team. And, I also knew, without having to bring it up, that it was the best way to get all of our best players on the field and have Pablo Mastroianni and John O'Brien in the middle of the field, as well as playing in a, sort of 3-5-2 formation would give us more of a solid foundation to kind of defend a very good Mexico team. So, we had Tony Santa behind me and Eddie Pope and Greg Berhalter and Eddie Lewis that were sort of played the back five. And we had a very active front with Josh Wolf, our current Austin FC, our head coach right now. And it was amazing. It was definitely, never will forget that game. We played excellent from the first minute to the end. Brad made a few saves when we needed to, but we were really defensively organized. We were lethal in the counterattack. We scored both our goals in transition. And it was a great day. It was an amazing day. That's when I think, certainly in the United States, the noise and sort of was dialed up to a whole new level, and we were able to beat them. And, we are halfway around the world, and, we're going on sort of Jay Leno and all these shows, and all my friends are telling me that everyone's watching it and people are all over the place, but we really didn't live it. We didn't experience it. This is before social media. So we just had to kind of believe what we were reading and seeing, and the shows we were on, and all of our friends and family telling us what was happening. So it was special, and a game we'll never forget. It was the most important Mexico game ever, and we beat them. So it was special, without a doubt. It was awesome.
I can tell you I was one of about several million kids who were waking up before school at ridiculous hours to watch those matches when they were in Seoul. That, like I said, as a kid, as a young soccer fan, that victory is like, it doesn't get better for me than that.
Yeah, that was great.
Claudio, let's pivot, because we have incredibly limited time with you, and we'd be very upset with ourselves if we didn't get into this point. We, for all intents and purposes, are still an expansion team. We've had an amazing couple of years, but we are still, laying down our roots. We're still cultivating. So as someone who has had a direct hand and a direct impact in starting 2 new franchises, what are some lessons you've learned along the way? What are some things you learned from a player that you folded into your roles at both NYCFC and Austin FC? And is there anything that we need to be super mindful of as we head into what's sure to be a crucial third year?
Yeah, certainly I've learned so much in my role, and in both cases being part of a team from the beginning. So similar to you and New Mexico, and being able to, from the early years, build that culture and having a blank canvas. And I think that's an advantage. While it's difficult, of course, to put a team together, I'm sure the roster part of it is, a challenge, just like it was at both teams, and constantly turning that over and improving it and making it better. But certainly the culture piece is huge. And I kind of talk about that quickly into just its people. And so the focus on allowing people to, really build the club, because the club is abstract. It's, what were named, but it's the people who build the club. And always people say, oh yeah, you got to help build and construct clubs and teams, but really you're building, in my role, building people that build the club. And so great staff in both places, and that's part of the responsibility of a sporting director. But you have to keep going. I feel it never ends. It's infinite. It's this. You win a game or you lose a game. You keep going, and it's the next day, and so you have to get into a routine and get into good habits from a cultural aspect in terms of making sure that I'm thankfully a relatively calm person, so I don't get too high or too low, and that's something I certainly, the player, I would get much more emotional both ways in my early days of a career. If I played well and we won, and played loss, or vice versa, even played really bad but we won, I wouldn't be happy. And I was able to, with experience, be able to kind of even that out. And I think in my role in particular, and I think as well the best coaches, you have to kind of wake up the next day and do it all over again. And so, but you can't do it without people. That's impossible. So I think in both cases, I made the best effort to bring in good support staff, good people. In both cases, I was usually the oldest. So younger people with energy is always helpful to kind of make sure this is a 24/7 gig. Weekends, surprises always come up. And so you just have to keep going and realize that it's infinite sort of ongoing cycle of days and weeks and highs and lows. And I think if you kind of keep in a really positive, honest, open as well track, we're very, in both places, I like to try to keep a very open dialogue with everybody, and, academy staff as well, which I oversee. And bringing it all together, in both places, everybody's welcome to watch training and to, be able to understand what's going on, not keeping secrets. I think in organizations where there's, doors are closed and you don't know what's going on, there's very little everybody shouldn't know, I feel like. And so I try to make sure people know what's happening, that I'm approachable as a leader. And again, you got to be able to cope with bad days. It's very important. You have to be able to lose well together as much as win well, because it's easy to win well. And I think you really learn about people and each other when you lose. And so we have to be, in that way, make those down moments, create those opportunities for us to be stronger. It's just like a family. When you go through difficult times, it makes you stronger, it breaks you apart. And I believe that as well as in clubs like sports and soccer, that when you have challenges, it's going to make us want to come back stronger. And then with that, having that mentality of players as well. And and then you have to get things right. You got to bring in good players. You got to make them better. You got to bring in good staff. They have to improve and create that whole environment of higher performance and making it better. And so, and we kind of have a mindset that everything we do really is for the players. They're the number one priority. We all do this for them. So I think that's what we do. We're here to make ourselves better, to make them excel and perform. So that's kind of what we talk about. Our org chart is flipped around, where we're the support at the bottom, and they're at the top. They're the most important. And the same with the academy. So they see that. I think that's very important, because if they see a staff that trusts each other, that works together, that respects each other, they're just going to give that extra 5-10%. And that's, for me, very important. It's a small soccer circle, this world. So, I always talk about, others are going to talk about us. You have agents, you have media, you have people in general. And we want to make sure players all talk that, they're talking about us as a place they want to be. And it's a great club, organized well, honest though as well. We can't fluff it when we don't do well, and got to be honest and straightforward. And that's those are really the lessons. But certainly playing and being in high pressure environments, I think more than anything has allowed me to take a step back always and have perspective and really support. That's in this particular role. I have to really always support everybody and them understand that I have their back and that we're going to take on every day 100%. And it's not going to be easy, but it's certainly a lot of fun, like I said. But it just keeps going, because I always talk about there's a lot of people within soccer, and Troy definitely knows how this works, but you win a game and you have those 11, 12 guys that are really happy. And then you have a few guys that are not as happy because they didn't play or play limited minutes. And then you have the guys who don't make the squad, that don't get named. And so those guys are the ones you have to make sure they're in a good way. So even when from the outside, the external see this result, great, it's happy, I have to make sure that those people and those players that are a little bit down because they didn't play, feel good. And so there's always this internal management of emotions and some of the people and players in particular that are not always part of the success. And so keeping them in a good place, and that's all of our jobs. But just some of the lessons and the experience that I've lived that, that I try to always, add to my role.
I wanted to add in, just so you guys know, the first person that I called after taking this job was Claudio to go and see what New York City did from 2015 to 2018. And he had me out to New York City, and I was able to stay there for a couple of days and come watch training as he was describing. And he touched on them. There were three major takeaways that I had. And Claudio, you see the kind of the cultural words that are up here in our locker room. There's also a timeline, which, these things are very important in terms of creating an environment that everyone understands the importance of different dates that we've checked off in our club's history and impactful moments. And you talking about the people, making sure to get the people right that are within the organization as a way to not only make it, go from the beginning, but really make it sustainable, where the community connects with the club. And then lastly, the inclusive nature and just the genuineness that you talk about. You were talking about managing the players that were outside of the team, not in the 18 maybe. And that comes from not just saying, hey man, how are you doing? After they don't get their way by being in the 18, it's those daily relationships you're talking about. And that's you, man, that's what you embody. Yeah. And, when you talk about the name Claudio Reyna, you don't think of yourself this way, but there's a certain, as a fan, as I was of yours, you have an expectation of, man, I hope this guy will be approachable. And you and I both know that's definitely not the case when you reach the levels you've reached as a player and now a sporting director. But you are exactly that, man. You're the most approachable, genuine human being. And I can't thank you enough for just sharing wealth of knowledge for us today. Lucas, I don't know if you want to speak maybe and just ask Claudio lastly about his foundation, because that's something that's important to us as well.
Great. Yeah. Awesome call, Coach. And you've already been more than generous with your time, Claudio. So we'll get you out of here as soon as possible. But we, again, want to hear about the work that you're doing with the Claudio Reyna Foundation. Again, just reading the quick blurb at the top of the website, it's all about what we're about and really what this country needs to be about. So spend a few minutes on that if you don't mind.
Yeah. So the story of my foundation actually was I started when right when I retired, and I wanted to just impact kids in urban areas through soccer, and started the after school programs where players, it's not looking for talent, but just to get them out there and exercise and learn good habits. And so we started, we had 200 kids, and it basically rolled up to 2,000. And just what I was able to do, because NYCFC had the same goal in mind, is to impact urban areas and use soccer as this platform, was to basically roll that all over to NYCFC. I didn't want to really compete, and in all honesty, as I moved into that role, it was sort of a conflict of interest, because they were going to do the same thing, and they had a bigger platform to possibly like build fields and do all that. So I was on the board for NYCFC as well, for the foundation. And we're going to do the same thing here. And you mentioned the community is such a big part of it. here in Austin as well. And it's something that I really look forward to. It's so important that, you know, it isn't really just about the 90 minutes, but other things that we do as well as a club, and, you know, being able to have people go out to a game, but also going out to these places and introducing them to soccer for the first time, and being able to impact their days as well. So my foundation, a lot of consistencies with what we're going to do here. And so something that I love doing sort of certainly quietly behind the scenes. And, you know, it's, a special part of it. And again, it gives you perspective as well in life, and to get out there and sort of makes you feel good. That's for sure. And it does. It makes me feel good to see other people feel better. It's a lot of fun. And I think, I'm grateful for being able to impact many people's lives along the way.
Well, we're grateful for your time, both of you, Coach Lesesne, Claudio. It's been a wonderful conversation. I wish it was 3 hours longer so that we could really dive in on this stuff, really put out some curriculum. But I think this is a good start. And Claudio, I don't know if Troy told you, we love to play goofy games at the end of these things.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that with you this week. We will save that. That will be a tease until next time. We're crazy appreciative of your time. Dave, did you have anything else for Claudio or Troy?
No, I again wanted to thank you for the time. Thank you for 2002 versus Mexico. I think I've reiterated that. Like I said, as a young American soccer fan,
we didn't qualify yesterday. Oh boy.
Yeah, that was rough. That was rough. But again, as a young fan, that was like in my formative soccer years, that made a big difference for me. And it may sound, you know, maybe a little, I don't know, cliche, but again, as a young fan, I hope you know the impact you had on millions of young kids watching the game.
Handball versus Germany. Do we want to get into it, right?
Oh man, yeah, that was still hurts. It was I never cursed so much at a ref in my life. That's for sure. That's for sure. After that one, because I saw it, we all saw it, and I think I always say he didn't have the courage to, and this is the truth. He didn't have the courage to call that against Germany. That's when a big traditional team got away with one against a sort of smaller soccer nation, because that was pretty clear. Everybody saw it. But yeah, it's sort of what ifs, you know, but it gives hopefully this generation, you know, and the future some hope, because if we did it with the little resources we had back then, you know, this group of players that's now coming through and with a good coach, hopefully can aspire to, you know, surpass our quarterfinals and really take this sport to a whole other level. That's what we're all hoping for right now.
Well, there's a young man that I think is going to take a great responsibility with that, and he had a fantastic goal a couple of days ago. So we're excited. We're supporting him, and they're the group that can do it, Claudio. I know you believe in them, and certainly we do as well.
Yeah, it's a great group, and they're again, they have to, as I tell him the same thing that I told you guys before. I said, you know, and he's like the boy obviously in the group, him and Yunus Musa, but I said, you know, when you get a few more camps in, you remember, you guys better have a chip on your shoulders. This isn't about just you got to go to war as well, in the, you know, and that's if they have that mentality, because they have a lot of confidence, they have a lot of energy, they have a lot of quality. If they have that chip on their shoulder and you know, want to prove the world that we are a soccer nation with really good players, then they can really go a long way and really excite us. You know, that's what I think everyone's really looking forward to. It's a great generation of players coming through, and look forward to seeing it. It's going to be, I think, a promising next decade for the national team and really beyond. I hope this is just becomes the norm, that we have guys playing in Europe at big clubs, like many of them are, and also in leading roles in MLS. And I think that's also changed. It's not just guys making up the roster. We have American players that are, you know, really important players in MLS teams, and also the guys that are breaking through in Europe. So, you know, let's keep supporting and you know, hopefully our national team will make us proud and get further than the 2002 team. That's for sure.
Real quick, Claudio, what's one thing that your dad coached you and maybe annoyed you by, you know, a certain coaching piece of advice that you swore you would never say to Gio, but inevitably you do the same thing as a dad now in terms of advice you might give Gio?
It's probably it's a bunch of things, but I think we both. My dad also, as much as he pushed me, also he knew when to step aside, and like when other coaches, he became a fan, and I'm sort of the same. He likes talking to me about soccer though, and we talk before every game, and we talk about it after every game. But I think the one thing, and this is something that my dad was always like, just like the ball and how important it is, and controlling it, not losing it, passing it correctly, and just kind of really appreciation of the ball, and being dangerous, being confident. So those are really the things that he always told me. Is same thing I'm telling him, like just be aggressive, be the attacker, and have confidence. And but so far he doesn't find me annoying, which is good. And we're able to chat, and it's obviously proud to see him, what he's doing at such a young age, and Germany and Dortmund, and now with the national team. He was the best thing about it is really you want to see them happy, and that's what he is. He was really happy being in this camp, and now he goes back and has big games, and at his age, and I honestly don't even know how he does it. It's crazy. These guys are doing it at such a young age. I'm like, were you nervous in these games? Like, he's playing PSG in the Champions League and Bayern Munich in these games. I'm like, are you? He's like, nah, I'm fine. Like, running out in front of 80,000. I was like shaking with my wife, and he's just strolling out there. I'm like, were you nervous? He's like, a little bit, not much. And I don't even know like how that even happens at that age, but that's a good thing. These guys they all have personality, and many of them, we have a big handful. And just to think 2 years ago, I'm sure we were all like, what is going on here? Where are our players? And all of a sudden, you fast forward 2 years, and and also see older players have stepped up, and I think credit to Greg, he's done a good job with molding a squad and creating competition. But now we've had this wave of talent coming through, and so it's exciting for sure. But I love being able to follow him really closely, and able to sort of still be a support person and a coach. And I'll watch the team he's going to play with a little bit more interest, because then I could tell him, hey, this guy likes to do this. So I analyze the opponent to help him, and then I also obviously watch his games. And but I try to make sure, knowing as a former player, you don't want to hear so much after a game, but I do give him a couple things every game that to think about. And he applies it, and he likes listening and learning. And so but the most important thing is that I just really love how competitive he is, and he just wants to keep getting better, and he wants to really keep playing at a really high level. So and he has good habits and good routines. And so as a dad, I couldn't ask for more. And like I said, I can't believe he's doing what he's doing already. He has over 50 games for Dortmund. He's already played 4 games for the national team, and he turned 18 in November. So at the same time, like, I always tell my wife, like, what can I tell him? I'm like, I don't even, I just started in college. And so I'm like, it's really hard to tell him stuff, because what he's doing is way beyond what most kids his age are doing. So it's just sit back and support him, and really teach. I love teaching. And definitely, I think that's a big part of what's missing in our sport. I got to meet Phil Jackson once, and there's something he told me was amazing. He said the problem with youth sports is that there's kids are overcoached and undertaught. And so I just love being able to teach him. I don't need to coach him anymore, but I certainly can teach him some different things. And that's what I love, as my role as a dad with him now.
Well, Claudio, you've taught us a lot. It's not every day that you get to hang out with a legend. It's not every day that you get to talk to people who've forgotten more about their subject matter than we'll learn. Again, we know you have a couple other places you need to be. Same with you, Troy. Again, Guys, thank you so much for taking time to hang out with us. On the other side of the break, Dave and I are going to come back, talk a little United soccer, maybe share a couple dad jokes. Who knows what's going to happen? The third segment is always wild. But for now, thank you, Coach Lesesne. Thank you, Claudio. Have a great rest of your evening.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Claudio.
Take care, guys. Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
For her.
Para ellos. For them. For all of us.
For our families, we stay home. For our communities, we keep our distance. For our state and our fellow New Mexicans, we wear our masks. As New Mexicans, we're no strangers to hardship. Anytime something is put in our way, we prove that we can overcome it. The sacrifices that we make today will create a better tomorrow for all of New Mexico. Somos Unidos.
Dave, I'm a little bit emotional, man. We just interviewed Claudio Reyna.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. It's very wild. I mean, this is a legend. This is literally one of the greatest players in the history of our country. It's insane. And he's so personable and so genuine, and he acts like he's not like just a legend. And it was so cool to talk to him. And if somebody, I think you mentioned this in the interview, Lucas, but if it's somebody that Troy Lesesne looks up to as a mentor, they know what they're doing, because I look up to him as a mentor. A lot of us do.
I can't even put it into words. It really does blow my mind that, again, this is a man who is set every record, who has met every accolade. I think one of my favorite like sort of tidbits about Claudio's background is this. I think he was the first American that was ever named the captain of a European team. And that's when he was at Wolfsburg. And
yeah.
I think he was the youngest captain in Wolfsburg history. And when he's sitting there and speaking, you understand why. There is no separation between leadership and those being led. Right? Yes, we were just on this podcast or whatever, but he entered the situation as someone who had an unbelievable amount of information, an unbelievable amount of insight, and he shared it with us all. And yes, I'm a fanboy. New mom.
No, that's my mom. That's my mom calling me a fanboy, and she's right. I mean, she knows. I woke up at 3 or 4 o'clock every single day during that World Cup to watch, and yeah, I am a Claudio Reyna fanboy, and I don't have any ill will about that, any bad feeling about that at all.
No, the Reyna household, the Reyna legacy is something to be proud of as a U.S. fan. And goodness gracious, on the tail of fairly devastating news yesterday about the Olympics, I think the thing that sort of just made it a little bit better was look at where the U.S. men's national team is at. We're just a couple months out from a big competition where we really do get to prove ourselves. And so I don't know, man. I guess there was something sort of spiritual about seeing Claudio that you're just like, okay, let's remember where this club has been, where this country has been, and let's see what these amazing juggernauts have done for it.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see where this men's national team is going. I think Troy talked about it in particular. You know, they're there. You know, the guys are there to lead the club and to accomplish great things. And you know, Claudio mentioned it toward the end there. You know, we'd love to see them go further than they did in 2002. Wouldn't that be incredible? You know, man, you have hope. You have hope for this club and this team, not club, I guess this national team. And, you know, our women's national team is just out of this world, insane. It's another level. And I would love to see our men, you know, be half that good. It would really be great.
It's an opportunity for stratospheric rise, right? For us to again just take that praise through the roof. Robert Romero, I'll tell you this right now. Austin may be one of your favorite MLS teams. You're one of my favorite social media followers ever. Like, thank you for your insight. You've been fantastic through this whole thing.
Hey, speaking of people in the chat, Diana is asking a very important question here.
Let's hear it.
Are we going to play a crazy game, Lucas?
You told me that due to the fact, let's let people behind the fourth curtain a little bit.
Yeah.
Like we couldn't play our game tonight. We had it planned. Like, don't criticize us for lack of preparation. We had it ready to go. It was called Dad Jokes, and it was a showdown between Claudio Reyna and Troy Lesesne.
Here you go. Here's one.
Just
what rock group has 4 men that don't sing? The answer to that? Mount Rushmore. Yeah. That's a bad dad joke. So we were going to have a couple of those, and it was going to be the new dad, Mr. Troy Lesesne, against Claudio Reyna, who is obviously also a dad to one Gio Reyna. That was our plan, but you know, timing didn't quite work out on that. So we pivot, Lucas, and I created a game that you are going to have to win.
Great.
And so that game is called Like Father, Like Son. And it is essentially, I'm going to give you a description of a father-son duo, a famous father-son duo. There's going to be 5 of these. If you get 3 right, you win. If you get fewer than 3 right, you lose. If you win, I will donate to the Claudio Reyna Foundation. If you lose, you will donate to the Claudio Reyna Foundation. So foundation donation, no matter what.
This is why we love our games, Dave. No one really loses. Only typically someone gets embarrassed. And that's okay. I'm happy to serve in that role.
Well, Lynn Marie Russo is cheering for you. So anybody cheering for me, please let me know in the chat. I could use the support. All right, you ready for this, Lucas?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. Your first father-son duo.
Yep.
In 1990, this father-son duo became the first to play on the same Major League Baseball team. And on September 14th of that year, they hit back-to-back home runs. They're the only duo still to this day to ever accomplish that feat.
Thank you for giving me a softie, one of my favorite social media videos of all time, but that would be Ken Griffey Jr. and Sr.
That is right. Ken Griffey Jr., fun fact, was my favorite baseball player growing up. I had a cardboard cutout of him in my bedroom that on multiple occasions would scare the hell out of me. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, just see a cardboard of a giant cardboard cutout of a giant man. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So you're 1 for 1. 1 for 1. All right. Number 2. The father in this father-son duo is widely regarded as one of the greatest songwriters of all time. He won a Nobel Prize, and his actual name is Robert Allen Zimmerman. The son is the frontman of the Wallflowers.
Oh, goodness. Can I phone a friend? Because I think I have one right here, and she can give me a last name.
You cannot. You cannot.
I'm just joking. If my wife could not count on me to get this right, then she shouldn't be married to me. It's Bob Dylan and Jacob Dylan.
That's right. That's right. All right, you're 2 for 2. I'm getting my wallet ready. Happy to donate to the Claudio Reyna Foundation, by the way.
Absolutely.
All right. Here we go. Number 3. The father in this duo is famous for his roles in The West Wing, The Departed, and Apocalypse Now. The son is also an actor, best known for The Breakfast Club and Mighty Ducks.
So what I love is that you tried to throw me off, because with the son, you could have gone, this son is known for all of the things Charlie Sheen is known for. But we tried, David, you treacherous best friend that any man could ever hope for, is you tried to throw me off of the Martin Sheen, Emilio Estevez connection. Don't mess with me on West Wing. Don't mess with me on Mighty Ducks.
I do love West Wing. I do love Mighty Ducks, and you are correct. Very happy now that you have won to donate to the Claudio Reyna Foundation. We're going to go through the last 2 of these just to do it.
Get some victory.
All right, here we go. Maybe I think I made these too easy. All right. The father in this duo was one of the top goalkeepers in the world in the 90s, playing for Manchester United. The son is also a Premier League goalkeeper, the current number 1 for Leicester City.
Yeah, those are the Schmeichels. And if it was not for the amazing Pete Davis, who I hope is listening right now, I would not have known that. But he turned me on to a great podcast. And if you don't know your Peter Davis, you got to get to know this guy. We have the best goalkeeping coach in the biz.
Yes, he was my roommate on the trip up to Tucson, and a wonderful roommate at that. All right,
So
you're
jealous.
4 for 4. I've already lost. Number 5, the father in this duo is a singer, affectionately dubbed the Godfather of New Mexico music. The son has carried on his father's legacy, perhaps best known for his song Flor de las Flores, and is from right here in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Sit here in the eye of the calm with me, David, because I think we're talking about Mr. Al Hurricane and Mr. Al Hurricane Jr. You're too kind. Great.
I made those too easy, huh? I made those too easy.
Little bit. Don't. Yeah, I am in fuego. From my number 1 social media fan, Rob Romero. I'm happy to put on for him and put on a performance for everyone. But more than anything, I'm glad that whether it's my name, whether it's David's name, we're promoting an amazing man, an amazing foundation. Everything that Claudio Reyna has put his hands on in American soccer is something that we want to support, whether that's Austin FC, whether that's his work with youth development or what he's doing with the foundation. Absolutely. I'm punny tonight. Justin, have you not tuned into the show before, bro? Like, that's 90% of my operation. But it's so good to see your name. Dave, What was your favorite part about tonight? And I'll just put this out there. You can't say Claudio Reyna. Like, that's weak sauce. You got to get specific.
I mean, it is Claudio Reyna, but if I'm getting specific on my favorite part of the conversation with Claudio Reyna, I loved when he talked about turning the organizational chart upside down. I love that. You
stole my answer.
Well, I'm first, so take that. The employees are at the top of the foundational chart, of the organizational chart, and the leaders serve their employees. I love that. It's a structure that promotes actually being a team. It's a structure that promotes working together to accomplish goals and trusting in each other. And I absolutely love that. I think that's something that we can all take for use in our own lives.
I think if you synthesize that even further, like if he had been allowed to extend the metaphor, sitting atop the players is the fan base, right?
Yeah,
and I love that, right? Like when you have great players, when you have these heroes for people to buy into, like you're not going to do any better than that. Since you stole my answer, I'll go with my secondary answer, which was always amazing, which is the fact that Gio and Claudio still talk about soccer. You know that I'm a softie for dads and softy for dad vibes, but the fact that you've got Gio Reyna, one of the most dominant young prospects on the face of the earth, you've got Claudio Reyna, one of the most historic figures in American soccer, and they still have frequent conversations around Gio's soccer games. I can't think of anything that's going to give me more sweet dreams than that.
Bouncing off of that, I love that Claudio very much recognizes, like, he's doing these things at 18 years old. I don't know how to give him advice on that. I mean, the kid's played for Dortmund 50 times and has played for his national team several times as an 18-year-old. That's insane. In the Champions League.
Yeah, no, I think this podcast is going to be a reckoning for my amazing kid, who is amazing in her own right. But I was making her watch the other game, and she was like, "Oh, that's great! Like that's fantastic." I don't think she realizes that dude's like a year younger than her.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane. And again, to go back to what Troy said and what Claudio said, is this national team is in good hands, and we hope that things will go well. And man, if we could just have a little bit of the spark that we had in 2002, things will go really well, because I think there's a real possibility for something special here. And again, I love watching our women's national team. That is my favorite team to watch, I think, in all of soccer. I love the U.S. women's national team. And if the men could get a fraction of that spark, we'd be in a good place.
Yeah, I think we could kick it back and forth a million different ways on how we get to the point that we're talking about. But I think the spark of it is what we've done here in New Mexico, what happened in 2002. Like, let's just get behind it. Let's be excited for it. Let's talk about it, because I think, especially in this era of social media, our team's going to see it and it's going to mean something to them. We've certainly seen proof of that point here in New Mexico. Dave, anything else we need to wrap up here, brother?
I don't think so. If you get a chance, give us a rating, a review, a download, a subscription, wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate you guys. And again, our focus is always on getting that community effort and that community work out there first and foremost. And when you guys give us those ratings, those reviews, it helps us kind of make our way up the charts so more people see that message.
That's right. More than anything else, make sure that people know me and David, ultimate dorks of New Mexico, got to talk to Claudio Reyna. That's all you have to throw out there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Lucas, I don't know who we're going to have next week, but it'll be tough to top Claudio Reyna. We'll do our best. But until then, Somos Unidos.
We're always united.